All right, great. Guys, super excited today to have started off as just a contractor of mine and has since become a friend. Um, he helped me out I was in a main market in Pennsylvania, up in like the mountain area. Um, and I had just quite a few projects that started off as sometimes small projects and became a little bit bigger projects. And he's helped me out on all of them. He's been very fair with me with pricing and all sorts of things. I would like to welcome Billy Salvadore to I don't know, what do we call it? It's a show, a channel, something.
Sure.
And I asked him, if he could just help me for myself and also just even for like the YouTube audience to help me understand a little bit about kind of like the mind of a contractor. Everybody's kind of experienced this whole like being burned by a contractor, like that's not like something that's new to
Mhm.
people's minds and thoughts. And so I wanted Billy to kind of talk a little bit about that, about one, how to not get burned, two, try to understand, pricing and things like that of a contract or how everything works. So I'm gonna stop talking and give some time to pass the mic to Billy a little bit. So Billy, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Yep. And a good friends we have become.
Hundred
Um,
percent, 100% indeed. Billy, how long have you been in contract? I don't think I actually know
m-
that.
my father was a general contractor, and his father was a general contractor. His father built DC basically when they were building DC. And
Mm,
so my dad worked with his father from teenage years, and I worked with my father from teenage years. And then as I joined the service out of high school. And then
okay.
out of high school, once I joined the service, I came back. After 4 years, I started to do construction, and that's what I've done ever since, all the way up to consulting, managing, all of that after years and years of experience. So I'm 51. so I have quite a few years, decades of experience. So I can actually say that I've one thing about experience, people think that you start out in this business and that you're perfect at it.
Mm,
And the problem is everything in life, even like figuring out what a stove being hot is, you have to learn on your own.
mm,
So some guys learn quick, some guys learn slow.
mm,
But again, I can say I've made mistakes before, and I'm sure I'll make mistakes in the future. Every person is human.
100%.
Mistakes get limited the more you apply the knowledge and the experience that you've gotten from other pieces of your work, and then you
Mm,
can piece it together in your mind as a thoughtful person and just be able to see how you can avoid certain risks. A lot of new guys who come in and work with me, they won't um, understand that. Well, they'll ask me, why, Billy? Why are you doing that? Why do you care? That might not even happen. That's good to live your life like that, but in this particular business, anything can happen, and
100%.
in life too.
100%.
So it's same as your business, and you lean on that dramatically. I think very
Yeah.
dramatic, that very much so.
Yeah, the whole thing, I think we just want to all sleep easy at night. You know what I mean? Not have to worry
Yeah,
about, with me, it's a transaction. I don't want any, blowback. I don't want any issues for the person. But for you, I mean, you've ran electrical wires for me, plumbing, all sorts of things. Like that could be
right.
quite
Yes.
chaotic if that goes bad. So it's
Oh,
definitely
yes.
better to err on let's be extra safe, that sort of thing.
Right.
So,
Right.
well, I want to call out an elephant in the room that probably none of my viewers would know, which is so you've been a contractor all these years. You've been you were in a service as well. What branch of the service were
Right.
you in?
The U.S. Army.
Okay, so you were in the army, but most contractors weren't also uh, stars and actors in movies. So tell us a little bit
Yes.
about that part.
So I went to Hollywood when I was
Mm,
31 years old.
mm,
I fell 3 stories off of a roof. I was
mm,
working in a family business.
mm.
I was the firstborn of the boys in the family. My dad did construction, so it just would go in turn that I would do construction.
Sure.
And I remember it this way. Everyone remembers a story a different way. So this is the way I remember the story going down. Basically, I had always had like this aspiration to do something like acting, but I didn't know I had it in me.
Mm,
And I went, I fell off that roof, and that was immediately what I thought of. I'm going to go I'm going to finish this job and I'm going to Hollywood. I'm going
Right.
to see what I can do.
Right.
And I got into it. I would say, average at it. But what I liked about it is I learned the production side of things. And
Mm,
that's what really spiked me because really making a movie is just building something,
mm,
taking a vision, just like blueprints, and seeing what the end vision is and trying to get the best idea of what they're picturing,
mm,
what that creator, writer, or whether it be production company is looking to see at the end, a
mm,
blue house or pink house,
mm-hmm,
those sort of things, and put those pieces together for them the easiest you can with the
mm-hmm,
best type of workers, the best type of equipment, the best
mm,
tools,
mm.
but for the most reasonable price
Of
and
course.
least out of pocket investment. So
Mm.
to me, that's where I caught into it and got really, really steamboating for a good decade. I did that and I enjoyed that.
Wow.
And then that's when I began my consulting because I thought since I worked in both fields, I could consult with producers on how to slow things down and take a look closer. And then
Mm,
contractors or homeowners or anyone who's getting
mm.
pricing or anyone who needs help to give pricing. I've helped a lot of different on both ends, from the
Right.
homeowner to the actual contractor. They'll give me a call, or an investor like yourself. They'll give you a call and say, "Hey, what do what do you think of this?" And
Well,
then I'm your bouncing board.
100.
So I think that Hollywood trip would have taught me 20 some year trip, but it taught me how to be a better businessman,
Mm,
take risks because risks are necessary, and
mm-hmm.
accept failure because failure will come, but never accept it and fall down. Instead, just move forward past that failure. Say, okay, now I know not to do that next time,
Right.
and then just keep going.
Well,
And that's it
let
for
me
me.
jump right into the question that like everybody, have has and I even have. So again, all these war stories about these contractors, all these things, transactions going bad, taking them for their money, taking their deposit, never finishing, wanting 50% up front. Everybody comes, they come on
Right.
a shiny, beautiful truck and, they talk super professional, they get you all good and excited, and then things go bad. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess quickly tell me about like why that happens, and then more importantly, how can we, within reason, avoid that?
It happens a lot. It happens very frequently, and I think that most times it happens by accident or by a hopeful thinking.
Mm.
The first um, I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn here in the
No,
wrong way, but
say your thoughts.
we call it Peter and Pauling. So
Mm,
borrow from Peter to pay Paul.
mm,
So you got a guy who starts a business. He's got the tools, he's got the
mm-hmm,
truck, but he has
mm-hmm,
no working capital. He has no funds. So
mm,
he goes to take a job. So he needs to get money for that job.
mm,
Well, he gets that job. He takes down now. This is a way to avoid. We'll go back. We'll step back, and I'll tell you how to avoid this situation. But um, he'll get the money and he's like, oh yeah, okay, now I can pay my truck insurance, my contractor's insurance, my this, my that, and get the material. Well, then the rain starts and it rains for a month, and it's an outside job that you can't do in the rain because
right,
not because you don't want to work in the rain, but because the product won't adhere in the rain.
right,
So now you have this money spent of someone else's, which you shouldn't have taken to begin with because there are percentage rates that are allowable by the state
mm, mm. I didn't
for a
know that.
percentage of down payment. Yes,
I didn't know
each
that.
state
That's
has its
interesting.
own.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the contractors board recommends what the down payment should be, and that should not be any higher until
Mm,
the person starts the job. Then there can be payments released and such, and there should be
mm,
a breakdown of that. But there's a minimum, there's a maximum that you can take down on a job in each
mm.
state, and you can Google that. As simple as Googling it. I
Gotcha.
believe in the state of Pennsylvania where I'm at right now, it's 10% or $1,000, no more, no less. I
Interesting.
believe that's the same in California.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that. I
No,
would
no, I
Google
get
it.
it.
How much can a contractor take?
Yep.
And usually that's where it starts. And so then I I actually was talking to a friend of mine who's a very good contractor, and he said I have 4 jobs started. The money was spent, and nothing started.
Mm,
And he says I need help.
Mm.
So in that situation, I'll help that person. I'll
Mm-hmm.
try to get out there and do some work for them on the fact that I trust them. And I
Mm-hmm.
know they're going to pay me in the long run, not in the
Right.
short run, but in the long run, I'll get my money out of it.
Right.
So for a friend, for a close personal friend, I'll gladly do that. For you, I would do that, uh, but it happens so quickly, and it's never in. I would say not never, but
Mm-hmm.
the majority of the time, it's just poor money management, and
Mm.
also starting a business without working
Mm.
capital. And that I've done it several times.
Mm-hmm.
And starting any business without working capital, you and I both know you need capital to fall
100,
back on,
100%.
because sometimes the customer doesn't pay, sometimes the job takes longer than expected, and sometimes the check doesn't clear for some odd reason and has to be on a hold for 14 days, right? So
100%.
you never know what's going on and you can't be starving, but you
Mm.
don't want to be taking your food money from another person's job, because now you're just damaging that job too. And you're tainting the job. And each job that goes down the line, you might get into 5, 10, 15 jobs. It's like owing a bookie. It's
Right.
like I owe Jimmy over on this side of town, Joey on that side of town, and Tony over here is about to break my legs. What am
Right.
I going to do? So I'm going to go bet with this guy so I can get the money and bring it over to Joey. And then Joey goes,
Right.
I know where he's going. It's
So
the same sort of
So,
thing.
so how do I avoid getting caught up in that mix? Because it's like, look, I understand that if I go with the big company, right? So if I go with, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, Home Depot to say,
Right.
install a garage or something, it's like Home Depot will install it. There won't be any issues, or at least that's our assumption, because it's a huge company behind it. But they're going to charge me three, four times, what it probably could
And
cost.
they are the same contractor that you would get on the street, because Home Depot, all you do is take a test, become a vendor. I've done it before. In the state of California, I was a vendor for
Mm,
Home Depot and
mm,
and 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 Lowe's as well,
mm.
um, in different businesses. And the thing is you're getting what you're getting on the street already. It's
Right.
just that they are vetting them. So that
Right.
would be the first point. They're getting vetted. So
Mm,
to vet them would be to give them a little clearance rating, give them that clearance rating. So I would recommend, and I would never get insulted if someone asked me this.
hmm
People have many times asked me this. Well, give me some references before you take the job. Do you have any pictures of your
mm,
previous work? Do you
mm,
have pictures of jobs similar to this? Can I speak to the person who you did that job for? Would
mm,
they mind? Could
mm.
you put us in touch with each other?
And would
Um,
you would you say that that's like one of the biggest ones is that reference
but
factor?
I think a reference would be the way I would go about doing it.
Okay. Okay.
Because even after a while, if you're in a smaller area, which every area to me is small, I've been in the city of Los Angeles. Now I'm in a town of 7,000 people here, 5,000 people where we work and do
Right.
things together.
Yep.
5,000 here, 10,000 over there, but it's sprawled out, but it's a very small town. So everybody already has their reputation in place.
Yep.
That guy's a bum. That guy takes checks, never comes back. That guy does dirty finish
hmm
work. That
hmm
guy never finishes what he starts. And I'm probably been called all of them by somebody, because you're always a villain in someone else's story. So no matter
That's good.
how good you are, you're always going to be a villain in someone's story.
Yeah.
So um, the
So
best
so
thing is the references. I really think the references are the key.
okay. So I'm looking to get a roof done on my house. And I'm saying to the guy, like, hey, look, I need some references. I need you to let me
Right.
know, names and phone numbers of maybe three last
Right.
jobs you've done or three jobs that are very similar to this. So
Exactly.
I get those references. I call the people. What am I saying?
I would obviously they would know, because any good businessman would talk to the customer and say, "Do you mind if I use your phone number as a reference?" And
Right.
then make, if it was me, I would probably put you on the phone with them. In other words,
Okay.
I would three-way the call, and then I would get out of the picture if he's wanted to talk freely without me
Okay.
there.
Okay.
And then that way you can uh, say, "Hey, well, what about this? What did he do? Did you have any problems along the way? What were the problems if you
Mm,
did?" Because I'm sure there's problems with every
sure.
job there is. So it just kind of your feel the person out.
Mm-hmm.
Also, go with your gut, big time. Go with your gut.
Mm.
Number one, vet the person. Number two, go with your gut. No matter if that guy seems like a shiny diamond, he can be a cubic zirconium very, very, very easily, even to a trained eye.
Mm,
So be very, very, feel your gut and go with that.
mm,
If he's asking crazy things like 50% down,
mm,
know to be able to stand up for yourself and already have that information. My state, my county, my this, they say you can only take this much down
mm,
until the job is started.
mm. That's good.
That'll protect you. Um, Also, being put on their insurance certificate can protect you, not only
Mm,
down the road if something were to happen, damages, collecting a loss a lot quicker,
mm-hmm.
but also you're a little bit more connected to that person. And
100%.
then that means that before they can do anything, uh, the customer would have to sign a lien release. And basically, in construction, you want a contractor who comes at you saying, "Look, we can lien your property, but you can also, fire us for this, this, and this." You want a solid contract, not just say, "Hey, hey." Now, again, when we're doing our sort of things, there's A, B, C, and D. There's high end, there's middle end, there's low end, and
Yep.
I'm not saying we do either. What I'm
Yep.
saying is when we do our work together, we know each other. We've developed the relationship. So now we're there. Okay, it says we're going to do such and such, and you're going to give me such and such. And that's cool. And sometimes you do pay a little more in advance because we know each other. But
Correct.
the first time you work with someone, see that they're responsible with the money. See that another big sign is if the material arrives on the project before they do, even that's a great sign that you got a good guy. He's
Mm,
already bought all your stuff and he's
mm,
brought it to you.
mm.
So at worst comes to worst, you've paid for your stuff,
Correct.
and if that guy walks away, he doesn't get anything because he hasn't done the work to apply the product.
Mm.
So that
No.
I think is another solid when you see in a contractor, and it's a evolutionary. It's a growth period. It's how long we've known each other. I know it's got to be going on five plus 5 years.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
past five.
100%. 100%.
It was beginning of COVID, I believe, even maybe before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it will grow, but the biggest thing is when a guy comes at you with crazy numbers,
Okay.
meaning
Okay.
that a light costs $20 and he's
Well,
saying he's charging me.
I actually want to ask about that too, because I think a lot of people, myself included, like, what are crazy numbers? We don't really know. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
how do
right.
we? I mean, you guys, and I don't think it's always deceptive, but you guys speak another language. And so,
Yes.
we talking about like plumbing, and you're like, oh, well, this 3/4 inch pipe needs to go into this 1/2 inch pipe, but we need to
Yeah.
connect PEX. And we're like, I have no idea what this is talking about. So I don't know
Right.
if this is
You
thousand
can
dollar
vary
thing,
someone
five
in
hundred
your
dollar
knowledge.
thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
How do
Yes. Yes.
we avoid? Maybe we have a decent contractor, right? As far as that they're going to finish the work, but how do we avoid like severely overpaying?
Well, back in the day, when I was in the 80s, let's say,
Okay.
up until even the 90s, year 2000, it was always before this crazy economic slides that we've been having in
Mm-hmm.
since 2008. We've been
Mm-hmm.
having these slides back and forth in construction, even a little before that, when we were in Iraq. And because a lot of that affects our construction pricing,
Right.
metals, it affects.
Uh,
It affects plywood because we agree to rebuild a nation if we destroy it, so that'll increase the cost of a sheet of plywood if we're
mm,
blowing a lot of stuff up.
right.
um
Right. Makes sense.
so those things, but before it was always 3.5 times the material. So if
Mm,
you have a job and it's $1,000 of material, you should expect to pay 3,500 bucks
got
or
it.
less,
Got it. Got
unless
it.
there's an extenuating circumstance. It's super high, it's super filthy, it's a hazardous waste, then those things change that. But usually that's the best way to go. I've seen, though, down to wholesale housing where you're just cleaning up and making sure the mechanicals work and it's livable condition,
Mm-hmm.
nothing Taj Mahal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've seen that number be just double the material because
Got
you're
it.
not doing a tedious work. You're just doing work that can be done quickly, get in, get out, and you get your money.
Got it.
So you can't, if you're an honest person, I think of myself as someone honest, and you would. you would be doing someone a disservice at that point to say, hey, look, we put plywood on your back deck instead of decking boards, but we're charging you the same.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
It wouldn't make sense. Why did
Right.
you put the plywood down then?
Right.
You put the plywood down to save the money. It's
Right.
gonna rot up, it's lift up, and it's gonna be a headache. You let them know that. But if
Yep.
they're just trying to get it livable, then here's your solution.
Right. Right.
So how hard is it to screw down plywood?
Right.
You don't have to line up the screws. You don't have to cut the decking boards. You don't have to put spacers, gap, nothing. So your your job is less harsh on you. So therefore, you should pass that along, I believe, to the customer. I believe
Gotcha.
that that's the right and moral thing to do, and you're not losing money because you're still making good money
Yep.
because it's churn and burn work. I
Yeah,
like to call it churn and burn.
it's funny you say that because that happens, I think, to customers a lot. Like they'll bump into a situation where, they'll get one quote, one price, and then they'll get another quote from another contractor, sometimes substantially different. And you're like, man,
Mm-hmm.
what the heck is the difference? And my experience I've found is again, sometimes you have these huge, high-end, like very corporate organizations,
Right.
and it's like, look, they're just going to hit you because they know that they can, because they have a name, they have a brand, they have all the things. And so that's some kind
Mm-hmm.
of price discrepancy. But then other times I've found with the quality of like how they're going to do the job. You know what I mean? Just like you
Yeah.
mentioned, as far as this decking or whatever. So you're comparing
Right.
apples and oranges. You have one company that's like,
Right.
look, we're going to put pressure treated wood down here and all these things,
Mm-hmm.
and this person's like, oh no,
Right.
I'm just going to put plywood down. It is what it is, and
That's it.
I
Exactly.
I guess that kind of really feeds back to your first point of the references of
Right.
and maybe even the recent references might not be the best ones. The best reference might be somebody who's a year, 2 years old, and
Yes.
their product has had a chance to fail. If you
Weather.
right,
Yes,
100%,
exactly.
hundred
Settle
percent,
in. Why the door always closes right the first time you leave the job. But
correct.
I've walked back on the same job site and said 3 days later, this latch is a little tight.
Yep,
And
yep,
you sometimes got to make a discernment. Why is it tight? Does it need to wear in, or does something need to be moved and corrected?
right.
And then that from there is your expertise. But yeah, it really you can't I can't emphasize enough. Know the guy you're working with, like
Mm,
the guy you're working with,
mm, mm,
like him.
mm.
Um, but don't like him so much that you're gonna, uh,
Let them get away with
feed
murder.
him feed him caviar instead of spaghetti.
Right.
Let him have his spaghetti. That's just fine. With
Yep.
give him garlic toast and all that. But
Yep.
caviar, he can earn and pay for that on his own.
100%. 100%. 100%. No, that's good. That's good. So I guess any other final thoughts about something that you know, in my negotiation, sometime when I'm really trying to get like a good answer out of somebody, I'll say to them, I
Mhm.
say like, look, we all have like a favorite cousin, right? It's like, man,
Right.
that's a good cousin. Like, we got all these childhood
That's my
memories and
guy.
things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
so it's like, look, so tell me what you would tell your favorite cousin in summation, if that's a word. In
So
some
what I would tell you.
yeah, there we go. There we go.
All right.
So like look, I'm trying to um I got to get a contracting job done. I got to get a roof done. I got to get this done, whatever. Look, I don't want to get ripped off, but I also don't want plywood down on my roof if plywood's not
Mhm.
supposed to go. Like how do I find the right guy? You know what I mean? In summing it up.
Right. That's it. I would say word of mouth is the
Mm,
best. If you
mm,
can find someone who says, "Hey," or if you're a lot of times I most 99% of the time get my work this way. I'm across the street from someone and they come over and at first when I was younger, I would be like, stop watching me work. Just
right,
leave me alone. Like
right,
just agitate me. But
right.
then I started engaging people and I realized they were actually there just because they might want the same thing done. so
Mm,
so
mm,
that's a good way too, because then you can say to your neighbor, hey, I noticed he's doing some, how is he to work with? And
mm.
then you talk to the guy a couple times. You come over, bring him a sandwich. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Bring him
Yeah.
a water,
Yep.
and your kindness is kindness, but also your kindness is a way to get in the door and see if this
Mm,
guy is the guy you want to work with. Word of
mm,
mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth.
mm.
Just like you would vet a customer almost
Yeah.
in any situation. You want to make sure that that contractor is checked out. If he's changing your toilet,
Right. It's not
you
that
know,
deep.
not that right. Yeah,
Right.
whatever. I
Right.
mean, you know, although you want to make sure he doesn't look like he does can lift the toilet, make sure he can lift the toilet
That's
and
true.
he knows what he's talking about. How are you
Right.
going to do this sort of thing? Like, how do you
Right.
plan to do this?
Right.
And that's I found too, if they can explain to you and have the patience to explain to you how they're
Mm,
going to do the job,
mm-hmm.
then they tend to be reliable.
Mm,
I went to court for a woman just recently, a couple of months ago, and she got a guy to just put a shower stall in,
okay.
demo the bathroom. It was supposed to be full bathroom remodel.
Mm-hmm.
He charged her $7,000 just to put the shower stall in. Would
Wow.
not explain how he was doing the job.
Mm-hmm.
Said that he didn't have to talk to her, that he
Hmm.
didn't have to tell her anything.
Hmm.
These things happened before money was handed over, and she still continued to feed this man money.
Wow.
So when someone's treating you like that, it's like a relationship with your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever, your mom, your dad.
Yep.
If someone starts treating you poorly, you reassess that situation in that relationship and you say, maybe this isn't good for me.
Hmm.
So you're allowed to do that in construction. You're allowed to
Hmm.
fire your contractor. You are
Hmm.
allowed. The
Hmm.
sooner, the better.
Hmm.
If they're not performing, if they're not bringing the materials to the job, starting the job on the day they said, keeping
Hmm.
within a reasonable time frame. When they have excuses, the excuses make sense.
Yep.
The excuses are not always the same excuse.
Yeah.
I tend to get sick quite a bit. And
Yep.
sometimes I think people think I'm throwing a bull when I call up and I'm like, yep, I'm sick again. And they're like,
Right.
how do you, I had someone say to me one time, how do you get this sick 5 times a year? Well, I just have a tendency to get bronchitis,
Right.
and I've had asthma since I was a kid. That's what happens to me. I'm
Yep.
coming off of something right now, coming off a
Yep.
bronchitis issue right now.
Yep.
And, but if the excuses are continually the same, most likely they're throwing the bull to you.
Gotcha.
Or they have some sort of substance abuse problem, organic, are not choosing the trade. They have issues that have forced them to be in this trade.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No,
So
makes
you're looking at the person in front of you. It's almost like you got to be able to do a job interview.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
that's why I always recommend that the wife is there and the husband so they
Mm,
both can get the perspective.
mm,
And you could see the arguments, how they're, even as the contractor, be able to say, hey, they're going to argue a little on this job. I could tell their vibe is a little bit, one way, one way.
yep.
And so you could choose as a contractor, hey, I'm a little busy.
Yep.
And then your price might go up a little bit if they see that. But
100%.
really, he gives you the opportunity to see how he will treat both of you and if he's able to listen to what you need.
No. No, that's super good. So if I guess in bringing this to a conclusion, uh we're saying word of mouth being really big. So, and
Yes.
I really like finding somebody on a job. I like that tip a lot. And I've done that, not even realizing it. So I like finding somebody on a job. I think that's really good. The other one is really checking their resources, checking. Um, not being afraid to ask them, like, look,
Right.
this is just a part of it. Um,
Knowing the prices of the material too. Sorry to cut you
mm,
off, but knowing those prices, knowing what's got, ask for a list of what's being used on the job and a
100%,
breakdown. If
100%.
we Even if they charge you to go acquire the material, that's okay. That's normal. Someone has to pay for gas and
That's
the
true.
truck and all that.
That's true.
But you want to know where your money's going.
No, that's good.
So
Okay.
so
So
that's a good
also
one.
also
I
checking the
failed
cost.
to
You're
mention.
right. And
Sorry.
it is readily available. Like we can all go on Home Depot, we can all,
It's
you know,
Yeah.
and then, ending it with this, there's a website that you told me about.
Yes.
Can you tell me about that website again?
It's Yeah, I've been using it for years, and I can tell you that you won't fail with it if you
Mm,
use it properly. It's region specific. You can just go to your Alexa and go Google excuse me, or your Google and
Hmm.
go, um, how much to put a roof on home wise, HOMEWYSE. And
Okay.
it'll take you to homewise.com. You can put your information in there. You can get more critical about it. And the information is from various sources, including homeowners who have
Mm,
recently had that type of work done. So
mm,
when you put the zip code in, maybe only 10 people have told about it, but then other zip codes, you might have 1,000. But generally speaking, that bid, when I go in, I've used that as my bidding tool for the longest time. I've taught others to use it as a bidding tool. Someone might say that's the dumbest thing ever,
sure.
but it always seems to be right in the middle of everybody else's bids.
Gotcha.
So without even having to look up, which I still look up the price of the material, but
Sure.
without even having to look up the price of the material, you could have a rough ballpark opinion right there. And
That's
then
good.
that breaks down for you what they're expecting the material to cost, what
Mm,
they expect the labor to cost. And
mm,
so then you can go in there as a homeowner and even say, is this a job I want to hire a contractor for or just a handyman who's going to put a shed up for me? And I'll buy the shed material and I'll pay them with a little less than what they say they would charge.
right.
And then you
Right.
save some money, and that's how we've worked a lot together to save
Yep.
some money.
Yep.
And everybody's happy in that scenario.
100%. 100%. No, look, this is super good. Billy, I really appreciate your time. I know you had to stop a job to get in your car to, spend some time with me and the team
It's always a
here.
pleasure.
So definitely super appreciate it. Billy, I'll include your information in the show notes because what
Great.
Billy also does, he didn't mention this. This is kind of like a new project for him, is he actually does consulting because I've had to get, tons of contracting work done. And I'll be honest, like, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. And so literally, I'm telling this contractor language for me is a whole nother language. And I just wanted an expert to say, like, look, does this make sense? Is this guy full of crap? And or can you negotiate this deal for me? And and Billy's a friend of mine, but no, I paid him for that service. And so
Yes.
again, it's just getting launched. It's not really his main thing. His main thing is a contractor, but I think he can be a blessing, to you guys as well. So I'll include his information at the end of the show notes. Billy, I super appreciate your time. Looking forward
Appreciate you
to
too, Steve.
touching base for sure, and even setting up a part two at some point.
I'm ready when you are. It's always a pleasure.
Perfect, my man. Billy, you have a great day. Thanks
All
again
right.
for your time, brother.
Thank you, brother. Have a blessed day.
Yes, sir. You
Talk soon.
too. Yes, sir. Bye bye.
Okay.